Oh, don't you know? Coming back live from Minnesota. Just thought I would over exaggerate my Minnesota accent. A couple things I wanted to touch up on as far as my YouTube channel goes for all 7 of my subscribers. I changed my name formally from Leo's Lineup Layout to Leo the Lineup, a playoff Leo the Lion. Thought it was a little bit more clever, maybe a little bit more fluid. And yeah, so I know it's riveting stuff for all 7 of you guys, but we're about an hour away from the doubleheader Monday Night Football game kickoff. However, they gave us a game for Tuesday because of COVID. And once again, this weird scheduled game is involving the Ravens. Cowboys at Ravens for Tuesday Night Football. And I figured I'll just get right into it. Lamar Jackson. If there was ever going to be a breakout game for him where he can show the type of player he was last year, this is going to be the spot for him. Dallas ranks 23rd in the league in regards to fantasy points given up to opposing quarterbacks. Determining a pass catcher to pair him with may be tricky, though. Mark Andrews has seemingly regressed this year, which is actually irrelevant because he's not expected to play in this matchup. This injury, it leaves the door open for Luke Wilson to fill in at tight end. As of recording this, there hasn't formally been contests or showdowns made on Draftkings or Fanduel. So if there is, I would assume there was, because why would they not capitalize on another Tuesday game slate? They're probably going to price Luke Wilson as the starter because they already have that information, which kind of makes him less appealing, but he's still super viable because we know Lamar doesn't discriminate against his tight ends. So it does make him a solid option. Another person to keep in mind is Marquis Brown, and he actually had a nice game last week if you're just looking at the box score. 8 targets for 4 receptions, 85 yards, and a score. However, if you dig deeper into that and take away that 70-yard garbage time touchdown from Trace McSorley in the final couple minutes, I believe it was a multiple possession game and kind of out of reach, but you can't take that touchdown away from him. But if you did, he would have just had 3 receptions for 15 yards, probably causing a lot of fantasy owners everywhere to simultaneously pull out their hair. I can't take that touchdown away from him. It still counts. But when it's stated like that, it certainly is anything but a boost in confidence. Not to mention the guy has had just 6 total receptions his previous 4 games before that Steelers matchup. Willie Snead, I believe his status is still uncertain, which makes Devin Duvernay and Des Bryant revenge game narrative definitely in consideration. Not serious about the revenge game, but you never know. The Cowboys' pass defense is less than stellar, so you're probably going to want one or a couple of his pass catchers. The Ravens figure to have their finally full backfield back. That's probably the biggest news on this slate. Gus Edwards and Justice Hill pretty much split it evenly last week against the Steelers. However, with J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram returning from the COVID list, things begin to get a little dicey. Mark Ingram, a.k.a. Lamar Jackson's biggest fan, is the biggest name in the running back room and was the lead back all of last year during the Ravens' AFC dominance. But that's far from the case this year. He hasn't received more than 5 carries since week 5, and for me, that's enough to just cross him off completely. Justice Hill seems to be nothing more than a I hope I get lucky play, and that's only if he's minimum price on DraftKings. Like I said, there's not contests out yet. But I assume he's the 4th guy on the depth chart. So in my opinion, Gus Edwards makes sense if you want to get a little different. Nothing crazy different, but maybe choose him over Dobbins or maybe both of them to get a little different. But yeah, it's J.K. Dobbins' backfield and his job. In his previous 4 games before missing last week on the COVID list, he has averaged 57% of the snaps, 12 carries, and got 2 targets in every single game. Certainly not jaw-dropping by any means, but based on those numbers, that would solidify him as their lead running back. I think it's also obvious he has the highest big play potential of anyone in the Ravens' backfield and is the most explosive, so you always have that going for him. Another play I really do like, in fact, is the Ravens' defense. Andy Dalton has thrown an interception in both of his last 2 games since the return, and we all know it only takes one bad decision to send 6 points the other way. I do like playing the Ravens' defense this week more than I generally do like playing defenses on showdown slates. Obviously, DraftKings, FanDuel's showdown slates don't have defense, clearly. But yeah, Andy Dalton, his last 2 games since coming back from that concussion and COVID, he's averaging 209 yards a game, 2 touchdowns, and like I mentioned, 1 interception in each game since. The only way I can really twist this into a good play is the fact that the Cowboys haven't been afraid to throw it 35 times when trailing, which is likely the case here. He also inherited an arsenal of weapons when Dak Prescott went down. Amari Cooper seems to be the generic default pairing, but CeeDee Lamb has shown the ability to lead the way when called upon to do so. You might remember that crazy touchdown catch in the back of the end zone against the Vikings. However, I think that guy back there, his touchdown one-handed in the other corner of the end zone was just as good in my opinion. But let's get back to the slate. Michael Gallup also got back into the mix last week for the Cowboys after becoming pretty much Casper the Friendly Ghost the previous 2 weeks. Sometimes you were even questioning if the guy was even on the field, but yes, he is worth consideration after Andy Dalton reminded him last week that he had not forgotten about him, and he threw the ball his way 8 times. Dalton Schultz has just averaged 5.5 targets, since Andy Dalton's been back. He's only averaging 25 yards a game though, but he did score once in those 2 games. I would say he could possibly catch a short touchdown around the goal line, but I don't think the volume will get you there alone, and he'll likely get you no more than 30 to 40 yards. And then there's Zeke. Zeke finally came back to life against the Vikings 2 weeks ago, but he was about as bad as it gets last week, coming in with just a solid and astounding 1.9 fantasy points. The Ravens have surprisingly allowed more success on the ground than you may think off the top of your head, but that's just because you're assuming they're the defense of last year. But I do think this Ezekiel Elliott play is going to heavily depend on how the Cowboys start out the game. If they come out aggressive and as a confident football team, smash mouth football, we have seen the Ravens find themselves in closer games than they should have been. A lot might be because we really think that they're the powerhouse of last year, which they might still be, but they definitely have found themselves in some dog fights. And I could see the Cowboys actually managing to somehow keep it close and kind of riding Zeke. But if the Ravens find any of their leftover identity from last year, this really could be another dud game from him, just like last week. So that's where it stands for me. I mean, it's mid-Monday, still a day and a half away from this game. Never know what can happen. We have a COVID year. Things can happen and change in the blink of an eye. So take it with a grain of salt. Everything's subject to change, but I appreciate you from tuning in. And until next time, peace out.